Sir, kindly start, sir.
Yeah. Let us be quiet for a few seconds. We will now invoke the universal prayer. Om. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let us be quiet for a few seconds again. Om. Thank you. Thank you and welcome to all participants and main speaker, Sister Vimal ji.
So last Sunday, Vimal ji was introduced by Vivaji. So no need of further introduction. I welcome Vimal ji to continue our study and discussion lecture on concluding part of reincarnation.
She is adopted my daughter now because she has wished to take birth in my family.
Welcome to new member in your family, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. You have always shown me love and affection, so I hope to be worthy of that love. So welcome all to this second part of the book Reincarnation by Annie Besant. I will share my slide and we'll just briefly go over the parts which we have already done. What we have done is what is the meaning of reincarnation? What is it that reincarnates? What does not reincarnate? What is the method of reincarnation? Including a little brief study on septenary bodies. Today, we are going to look at what is the purpose, the cause, and the proof of reincarnation. So this is going to be very interesting. The next 3 chapters, the object of reincarnation means what the purpose of reincarnation. The object of reincarnation is to train the animal mind to become a perfect instrument of the divine. So we have already studied that the Manasa Putra or the Kumaras, they give the thought faculty to the animal man. And this is manifested, as you can see in the arrow here, this is manifested in the form of clairvoyance, clairaudience, and thought transfer as psychic abilities at first. The thought faculty is first felt as psychic abilities. Then with repeated incarnation, language and reasoning abilities develop. And finally, it comes to the modern man who through repeated incarnations develops both the psychic abilities and the reasoning faculties and thus becomes a master as per this book. So the civilization has ever developed the physical and intellectual at the cost of psychic and spiritual. If you as per our studies in the 4th root race, we were an advanced civilization in terms of infrastructure and everything, but we lacked in psychic and we lacked in spiritual abilities. So we had more of physical and intellectual, and that is the cause of the fall of the 4th root race. But without this development, animal man could not become divine. The perfect septenary being whose object is of incarnation is to evolve. So what it's saying is that all planes of our septenary body have to be developed. Hence, the psychic abilities of man has to develop beyond the reasoning, rational mind for man to progress on this path. So there is no option for us not to be able to develop that psychic ability. The spirit or awareness has to be in all planes, not just the physical, astral, and mental, but also in the buddhic or higher psychic for the septenary evolution to be complete. This is arhatship. Man's living body has in it, in miniature, all forces of the physical universe. Ignorance makes the supernatural, knowledge reduces all to the natural. This is in reference to all the abilities like clairaudience or clairvoyance, which were considered as supernatural, is actually the natural development of man. Today, if we think that we are able to do a high level of logical thinking and a high level of maths, do we regard that as supernatural? No, we regard it as natural. Similarly, those skills which are of the Buddhic plane, when they come to us, they will be our natural abilities. Once the stage of development is reached, there are two paths to the Arhat. Either he chooses nirvana and merges into the peace that passeth understanding, or he chooses to help humanity and continue living on earth, the path of renunciation. Except from the voice of silence says, the conqueror stands triumphant, his mind like a becalmed and boundless ocean, spread it out in shoreless space. He holdeth life and death in his strong hand. Then the question comes, now he shall surely reach his great reward. Shall he not use the gifts which it confers for his own rest and bliss, his well-earned weal and glory? He the subduer of the great delusion. But the answer rings clearly out. Nay, O thou candidate for nature's hidden Lord, if one would follow in the steps of holy Tathagata, whose gifts and powers are not for self, know that the stream of superhuman knowledge and Deva wisdom thou hast won must, from thyself, the channel of Alaya, be poured forth into another bed. Know, O Narjol, thou of the secret path, its pure fresh waters must be used to sweeter make the ocean's bitter waves, that mighty sea of sorrow formed by the tears of men. So here there are two parts. One is, if after so many births, so much sorrow, we come to a final state where we have conquered our desire and reached that higher level, will we choose to go back to earth and continue to help those people who are in sorrow, or will we seek our own rest? But if we follow the Tathagata or another word for Buddha, we would follow his path and choose to give up that bliss and continue to help humanity. Self-doomed to live through future kalpas, unthanked, unperceived by man, wedged as a stone with countless other stones, which form the guardian wall, such is thy future, if the seventh gate thou passeth. Built by the hands of many masters of compassion, raised by their tortures, by their blood cemented, it shields mankind, since man is man, protecting it from further and far greater misery and sorrow. Compassion speaks and saith, can there be bliss when all that lives must suffer? Shall thou be saved and hear the whole world cry, now thou hast heard that which was said. Thou shalt attain the seventh step and cross the gate of final knowledge, but only to wed woe, if thou wouldst be Tathagata. Follow upon thy predecessor's step. Remain unselfish till the endless end. Thou art enlightened. Choose thy way. These words will touch everybody, because where it says that that these masters of wisdom form a wall of thankless and unperceived by anybody else to shield mankind from sorrow, from further sorrow, because already there is sorrow, but we inflict further sorrow by our selfishness. The fundamental cause of reincarnation, as of all manifestation, is the desire for active life, the thirst for sentient existence. The Hindus have pictured the god of desire as the impulse of manifestation, karma, some deep-lying essence of nature, obvious in its workings, but incomprehensible as to its origin and reason, manifests as the law of periodicity. And alternation such as day and night, life and death, sleeping and waking is a fact so common, so perfectly universal and without exception that it is easy to comprehend that in it we see one of the absolutely fundamental laws of the universe. The ebb and flow everywhere, the rhythm, which is the systole and diastole of the cosmic heart, is manifest on every hand, but the reason for it escapes us. We cannot say why should be so. We can only say that they are. And in the esoteric philosophy, the same law is recognized as extending to the emanation and reabsorption of the universes, the night and day of Brahma, the outbreathing and inbreathing of the great breath. Karma for the individual, as for the cosmos, becomes a primary cause of reincarnation. And as desire differentiates into desires, these chain down the thinker to earth and bring him back time after time to rebirth. When the nature of desire is realized by the student, he will realize why its destruction is necessary to the perfecting of the spiritual man. Desire must be till the harvest of experience has been gathered, for only by feeding on that harvested experience can growth be nourished and sustained. So while experience is still lacking, the thirst for it remains unslacked, and the ego will return to earth again and again. But its fetters must fall one by one as the ego reaches the perfecting of its tabernacle, for desire is personal and therefore selfish. And when desire prompts action, the purity of the action is tainted. So, I mean, this is an interesting thing when we think about it. All the things that we desire, by the time we reach our midlife and little after that, we realize that none of them give us much happiness. They increase our responsibilities, increase our tiredness in life, and we ultimately we then think that maybe if we didn't have those desires but some other desires, then we would have been happier, but that is not the truth. And every time we have these experiences, we realize that, okay, this desire was not worth going towards. So this is the accumulated wisdom of our continuous lives. The condition of arhatship is unceasing activity without any personal returns. The arhat must give light to all, but take from none. So although the arhat is continuously working for humanity, he has no personal selfish desire in it. That is why he continues to give light to all and takes nothing from anyone. Hence, the upward climbing one desire after another must be loosened. Desire for personal enjoyment, personal pleasure, personal gain, personal loves, personal attainments, and last and subtlest of all, desire for personal perfection. For the personal self must be lost in the one self. That is the self of all that lives. See, what we are trying to understand is we are trying to evolve from a modern man into the master. Okay, for that to happen, we have to become as unselfish as possible. And everything that we selfishly desire, we have to give up. First, personal loves. Okay, that is the self of all that lives. And here, two warnings against misunderstanding are necessary. First, personal loves are not to be killed out, but are to be expanded till they become universal. We are not to love our dearest less, but all are to become dear, so that the sorrow of any child of man shall wring our hearts as much as that of our own child, and stir us into equal activity for help. Loves are not to be leveled up. Loves are to be leveled up, not down. The heart is not to be frozen, but to be aflame for all. The failure to realize this and the tremendous difficulty of the task when realized have led to the stifling of love instead of its growth. Overflowing love, not lovelessness, will save the world. The Mahatma is the ocean of compassion. He is not an iceberg. He is to be a force for good, and good must flow in the channels where it is most needed, not in those cut by personal loves or racial predilections. Hence the long training, the personal asceticism, the isolation, which are the conditions of chelaship. Second, that is the second misunderstanding to be avoided. Action is not to be stopped because the disciple no longer seeks the fruit of action as reward. Inaction in a deed of mercy becomes an action in a deadly sin. Shalt thou abstain from action? Not so shall thy soul her freedom. Not so shall gain thy soul her freedom. To reach nirvana, one must reach self-knowledge, and self-knowledge is the of loving beats the child, says the voice of silence. But while action must be carried out on the full strain of human past, desire for its fruits and personal satisfaction must pass away. A good deed must be done for the sake of its helpfulness, of its use to others, not for the sake of praise either of others or of self, not even for the subtler longing for self improvement. Here again, the failure to realize the distinction between action and desire for the fruits of action has led to the stagnation and passivity characteristic of Eastern nations, since spiritual selfishness and indifference brought on their decay. As this general desire for sentient existence is the cause of reincarnation universally, so is the determining cause of each individual reincarnation the renewed longing for the taste of existence on the physical plane. When a long life on the earth plane has been lived and a store of experiences has been gathered, this longing for physical existence is satiated for the time, and the desire turns towards rest. Then comes the interval of disembodiment, during which the ego, re-entering as it were into himself, ceases to energize externally on the physical plane and bends all his energies to internal activities, reviewing his gathered store of experiences. This is the post-death experience. The harvest of the earth life just closed, separating and classifying them, assimilating what is capable of assimilation, rejecting what is effete and useless. This is the work of the Devachanik period, which is the heavenly period. The necessary time for assimilation, for gaining equilibrium. As a workman may go out and gather the materials for his work, and having collected them, may return home, sort and arrange them, then proceed to make them from them some artistic or serviceable object, so that the thinker, having gathered his store of materials from life's experiences, must weave them into the web of his millennial existence. He can no more be always busied in the world of earth life than a workman can always be gathering store of materials and never fabricating from them goods, or than a man can always be eating food and never digesting it, assimilating it to build up the tissues of his body. So we cannot keep on having experiences and not learn anything from them. We have to learn something, and that learning happens in our post-death period. This, with the rest needed between periods of activity by all forms of being, makes Devachan an absolute necessity and rebukes the impatience with which ill-instructed Theosophists chaff against the idea of thus wasting time. The rest itself is a thing, be it remembered, that we cannot do without. We need the rest for us to understand what we have gone through. The tired and worn out Manu, thinking ego, needs it, and it is only the now rested ego that is ready and fit for reincarnation. We have not the energy needed for taking up the burden of the flesh again until this period of refreshment has enabled the forces of life, mental and spiritual, to store themselves up once more in the spiritual man. The last 7 lives. It's only at the approaching close of the cycle of rebirths that the ego, grown strong by his millenniums of experience, is able to gird himself for the awful strain of his last swiftly recurring lives without Devachanik break, scaling those last 7 steps of the ladder of existence with the tireless muscles hardened by the long ascent that lies behind. I guess if a person has reached this last 7 steps, he is assimilating from his experiences then and there. His knowledge is changing him in his living life. So he doesn't need to assimilate it after death. That is one more thing. And the word millenniums of experience can be understood by those who are non-theosophists here, that by this, that we take about 1500 to 2000 years between births. So every birth is about 2000 years old. We may live up to 70 to 100 years, but our actual life is about 1500 to 2000 years in this particular, whatever we are in this form, whatever we have gained, we are going to continue in this particular combination of situation for another 1500 to 2000 years. One kind of understanding of Devachanic experience, one kind of progress outside the necessary process of assimilation just spoken of, which is a condition of further progress, may be in Devachan. H.P. Blavatsky says, in one sense, we can acquire more knowledge. That is, we can develop further any faculty which we love and strove after during life, provided it is concerned with abstract and ideal things, such as music, painting, poetry, etc. Since Devachan is merely an idealized and subjective continuation of earth life. This may explain the marvelous infantile genius sometimes shown, especially in music, going far beyond any point known to have been reached before in the history of that art in the Aryan race. However, that may be, it is well to remember that the resolute following of abstract thought of idealistic longings give a trend to the Devachanic existence that will make it a state of active as well as of passive progress. While Devachan is essentially the world of effects, yet to this extent, it borrows from the world of causes, though it is also true that the impulse must be given here, which will let the wheel still turn along that peaceful road. Just out of a point of humor, just for everyone, it's a serious text, so I will add a little humor here. In ancient wisdom, Annie Besant says that in the seventh plane of Kamaloka, we find many people in the Theosophical library because they are so used to that thinking, that words, it brings them so much comfort that they remain in that instead of going to the Devachanic level. So yes, I mean, whatever we have been striving towards, what this text says is we will continue to strive to higher in that, even though Devachan is the place of effects. But in some way, it will become the place of causes if we are striving towards abstract things like arts like painting or music, etc. In Devachan is no initiation of cause, no origination of endeavor, but it allows of continuation of efforts aimed at the highest planes of being that man may reach from earthly life. Why there should be this possibility, it is easy to see. For the abstract and the ideal heights are illumined by the manasic radiance, and that brightens. It is not dimmed when manas tejasi, the shining or resplendent manas, soars unfettered to its own plane. At the end of the Devachan period and re-entry into earth life, Kama with its army of skandhas await the person at the threshold. As a man sows, so he reaps. He is the master of his destiny, and if he wills to build for temporal success, for physical luxury, none can say him nay. Only by experience he will learn that the power and wealth and luxury are but Dead Sea fruit, that with them the body may be clothed, but the ego will be shivering and naked, and that his true self will not be satisfied with the husks that are fit food for the swine. But at last, when he is full fed, the animal in him, and starved the human, he will, though in the far country whither his wayward feet have carried him, turn yearningly towards his true home, and through many lives he will struggle thitherwards with all the force used for dominance now yoked to service, and the strong man who builds his strength for mastery of others will turn it to mastery of self and training it into obedience to the law of love. So basically, we get exactly what we have sowed, and if we have only worked for ourselves, we are only serving our lower self and not the higher self. The day we learn what is the nature of that higher self, which is love, and we learn to master this lower self, we go to a higher level. Now, there's a question on what determines sex. The ego by itself is sexless. Sex is determined by what aspect of the personality needs developing. For instance, in man, when a person is born as man, the aspect that's expected to be developed is courage. And in a woman, among many other qualities, but courage is a prominent aspect. In a woman, it is tenderness, purity, and endurance. Also, the karmic consequences of infliction of wrong by one sex on another will be the drawing back of the wrongdoer to suffer in the wronged sex, the effects of the causes they initiated. Perpetual progress for each reincarnating ego or divine soul in an evolution from the outward into the inward, from the material to the spiritual, arriving at the end of each stage at absolute unity with the divine principle. From strength to strength, from the beauty and perfection of one plane to the greater beauty and perfection of another, with accessions of new glory, of fresh knowledge and power in each cycle, such is the destiny of every ego. So now we come to the next chapter, which is the proof of reincarnation. This is a very interesting chapter. In man, and in man only, among all the races that people the earth, do we find such great physical unity and such vast intellectual and moral divergence. Reincarnation, with its persistent intellectual and moral ego, learning by experience, developing through millenniums, offers a sufficient cause, and a cause which also explains why a man progresses while animals remain stationary. From the mental and moral standpoint, save as artificially bred and trained by man. As far back as records reach, wild animals have lived as they live now. Beasts of prey, herds of buffaloes, tribes of monkeys, communities of ants, they live and die, generation after generation, repeating parental habits, slipping along ancestral grooves, evolving no higher social life. They have physical hereditary as man, but physical hereditary does not, for it cannot give them the accumulated experience which enables a persistent human egos to climb onwards, ever building great civilization, gathering knowledge, rising higher and higher, so that none can escape, can trace a limit beyond when humanity cannot grow. It is this persistent element lacking in the animal and present in the man that explains why the animal is comparatively stationary and the man progressive. So now you see the very great importance of the assimilation that happens in the heavenly plane of Devatan. There is no individual storehouse for the experiences gathered by the animal, but man storing the essence of his experience in the immortal ego, which is our Atma Buddhi, which we discussed last time, starts life after life with the store as his possession, and so has the possibility of continued individual growth. Things that only reincarnation can explain. Let's look at that. Differences between siblings in the same family. How many of us have our brothers and sisters in Theosophy? Here comes the greatest difference. But let's hope our effort will make our siblings also in this path. Okay, let's take at another thing that reincarnation can only explain. A saint-like child born to a corrupt family, a corrupt black sheep born to a morally upright family. Siblings may look similar, but morally are poles apart. Extraordinary skills and abilities in children, like Mozart. Birth defects, disabilities. Twins who look similar in birth grow up to look different as their individual mental tendencies kick in. A Plato, a Dante, a Bruno, a Shakespeare, a Newton. Whence are they, these radiant children of humanity? They spring from mediocre families. They didn't come from genius families. They came from ordinary families. How does that get explained if it is all genetic? So obviously it's not all genetic. Can the great moral genius of Lao Tzu, a Buddha, a Zarathustra, a Jesus be explained by hereditary? From where did their untaught wisdom, their spiritual insight, their knowledge of human sorrows and human needs come? Men have been so dazzled by their teaching that they have dreamed it a revelation from a supernatural deity, while it is the ripened fruits of hundreds of human lives. We have heard of Jataka tales, which is the stories of Buddha's previous lives. And we realize that we think that it is in most of the texts, whether of all the religious texts, it is written that there was some angel or some divine entity giving light to these people. Maybe partly true, but the reality is that their own self-understanding and their own input into that religion was far higher because of their assimilated wisdom of past lives. So reincarnation solves, as does no other theory of human existence, the problem of inequality of circumstances, of capacity, of opportunity, which otherwise remain as evidence that justice is not a factor in life, but that men are the mere sport of the favoritism of an irresponsible creator or of the blind forces of soulless nature. Definitely, justice is a factor in life. Analogy suggests the coexistence of the temporary and permanent elements in one life cycle. The leaves of a tree are born, mature, and fall. During their life, they take in nourishment, change it into substance useful to the tree, transmit the result of their life energy to the tree, and die. They do not rise again, but the tree endures and puts out the new leaf, new spring, a new crop of puts out with the new spring a new crop of leaves. So does the personality live, gather in the experience, transmute it into permanent values, transmit it to the enduring tree whence it springs, and then perish. After the winter passes, the ego puts forth the new personality to do similar work, and so to build up and nourish the growth of the tree of man. Of course, here is the boabab tree in the Theosophical Society at Chennai outside the youth lodge. It's an extraordinary tree because this is not natural to Chennai and has been planted here. And we understand this aspect. This is so beautifully explained that just like a tree gives birth to different leaves and they give nourishment, they make through photosynthesis, produce the food that is necessary for the tree and then give that in the form of sap to the tree. And themselves, they dry up and die. Just like that, we are also just leaves on this tree. And very often, a lot of spiritual texts show this tree as a symbol of spiritual life. The trunk of this tree represents our true higher self, and the leaves are all our personality. So, all through nature, we see the temporary serving the permanent, working for the growth of that more enduring life of which it is but the passing expression. Interesting study of how the gap of 1500 years between incarnations can be seen due to humanity traveling in bulks. So here Annie Besant has done this study that in the 1st century Augustan period of Roman history, the leaders of that period were conquerors, colonizers, empire builders. Now, same thing in 15th century Elizabethan period of the English, that is 1500 years later, same type of people were reborn 1500 years later in England, and they were also conquerors, colonizers, and empire builders. Okay, from the 15th century onwards or 16th century onwards, that is what the English people were doing, which is colonizing the whole world. Then we look at another example that in the 3rd and 4th century, Christian religious thought, same kind of very serious Christian thought rose again in the 18th and 19th century of Gnostic thinking. Now, here we look at how some races seem to advance and some races deteriorate. So, for example, let's look at the left side here, an advanced soul in an advanced race. Now, advanced soul reincarnates in a backward race after some period of time, and advanced soul advances the backward race, which now flourishes. So here there was an advanced soul initially in an advanced race. It took birth after its rest in Devachan in a backward race, and then that entire group of advanced soul advanced the backward race. Similarly, a backward soul goes to an advanced race. Now a backward soul has gone to an advanced race. The backward soul retards the advanced race. Advanced race diminishes and disappears. This is how people are shuffled between different races, and everyone is eventually rising. The advanced person helps other people advance. The backward person goes to an advanced race, advances a little bit himself, but eventually the advanced race retards, and the new backward race which has advanced goes up. Now, another thing is the loss of memory explained by the fact that brain contains a memory, and that does not reincarnate. It is the brain which contains the memory, and it does not reincarnate. It dies with the physical body. Now, another question that comes, which is very often asked, how come population seems to be increasing if the same number of souls reincarnate? For this, Besant said, let's say every 100 years, 4 people reincarnate. After 500 years, 1500 years, 4 plus new 4, plus some other 4, old 4, whose reincarnation time was shorter than 1400 or 1300 years, will make the population look larger. I think this is something you can think about in leisure. It took me a little time to understand how this is happening. Hence, it is due to the differences in reincarnation time that population seems more at some time and less at others. Overall, only a small portion of souls are live on earth at one time of the total number of souls, which is much larger. Now, let's go to this. The esoteric philosophy these are for more objections to reincarnations. Reincarnation theory. The esoteric philosophy teaches that the future destinies of egos become intertwined by the relations set up between them in any earth life. Love and hatred, service and injury, comradeship and good and evil all tend to draw the egos back to earth life together for the joint working out of effects jointly caused. Hence the shocking and on this plane unnatural hatreds found to exist sometimes between parents and children, brothers and sisters, hatreds as inexplicable as they are malignant, marked with monstrous features of revenge, as for some unremembered but dominating wrong. Hence, too, the inseverable ties that bind hearts together, outreaching distance, outlasting time, ties whose uncaused strength in this life points to a genesis beyond the portal of birth. Each life, so this is the last, and after this we can begin our discussion. Each day of life, but is but one page in the great drama of existence. Each sorrow, but the fleeting shadow by a passing cloud. Each joy, but a gleam of sunshine reflected from a swinging mirror. Each death, but the moving from a worn out house. The strength of an eternal youth begins slowly to pass into the awakening life. The calmness of vast serenity broods over the tossing waves of human thought. The radiant glory of the immortal intelligence pierces the thick dust clouds of matter, and the imperishable peace that naught can ruffle sheds its pure whiteness over the triumphant spirit. Pinnacle after pinnacle of spiritual heights lift themselves into the illimitable ether, steps which climb the azure immeasurably and fade into the infinite distance which shrouds the future, immense and unimaginable by the very spirit in man. And then, blinded by the excess of light, wrapped in a hope too deep to be joyous, too sure to be triumphant, too vast to be syllabled, man enters into the all consciousness, to which our consciousness is as senseless, till eternity again thrills with the summons. Come forth, for the day of Brahma is dawning, and the new wheel begins to turn. Have you all seen it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, sir, we open up for discussion.
Very nice presentation. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for your very interesting lecture. One thing that struck in my mind is that you said that memory dies, but if you think about past life regression theory, or if you think about how Buddha remembered his past life, so how would you explain that?
So that is, see, the memory dies to the extent that Whatever is in our brain dies, but the sum total of what is each life is remembered by the soul. Because at the end of this entire kalpa, we will remember all our past lives. That will come. That's how Buddha also remembered all his past lives. Because the essence of that experience, that knowledge, is stored in the higher self. But for this past life regression, of course, there are people who are practicing it very honestly and properly. And let's talk about that level. Possibly there is something which where we are able to reach that higher self and get that information back to us. That's how I think. Also, if you know, Krishnamurti's lives have been recorded as the lives of Alcyon. So we do know that this exists and it's possible, but it is still different from things which are in our brain. If anybody else would like to answer that.
No, my point is past life regression is it may, I have no idea, but many people are practicing, and there is an organization, and also they have a system to, if we follow some kind of practice, then we can able to know some past lives. But I am not sure how far it is helpful in our spiritual journey or spiritual development. One thing, at best it can give you 2-3 lives in past, but as Krishnamurti was told when he was giving teachings by Mahatmas, that don't go for psychic or such type of experience. And he himself, Krishnamurti, told when I am taking you to see the light of sun, and you are thinking of just a dim light. So, Sister Vinita, my point is Buddha experience is different, and we cannot imagine how stupendous his consciousness. But this past life experience, what they are doing, they have a system, they have a practice, they have a book, they followed it, and they gain some kind of, like the medical practitioner, like the some kind of a subconscious level, they are getting some knowledge like that. But I am not sure how far they are true in revealing the past life. That is my point. Anybody can give more on it. I have not, but the experience of Buddha is different, and it is much bigger, because Buddha is in a different level of his consciousness is vast, so vast he can know. And even when a person became adept, when he became reached a perfection, he or she, after making that ego or soul becoming reached at a perfect level, it has all his become knowledge within whatever happens to him during his human kingdom. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to say anything? Yes, Sir Raman, sir. Yes.
Ramanji, yes.
Raman, sir, you can speak. Can you unmute? Yes.
Yeah, I've unmuted. I've unmuted. H.P. Blavatsky in Key to Theosophy says, it's only through birth, the perpetual progress of countless billions of ego towards final perfection and final rest. So, I mean, it takes more than one birth for a person to reach that level where he will be in a position to know more about his past life.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Anil Kumar Barua, sir, you would like to say something, sir?
Yes, madam, regarding this first part, actually the Buddhist monk, I have read one book by Suchitra Ankan from she's a island. So Dr. Suchitra Ankan said, one monk actually, when your Muladhara chakra is open, then you can know your past birth for yourself and
Sir, you are not clear.
also for others.
Sir, sir, you remove the video and speak, sir. You are not clear.
Hello?
You switch off the video and speak, sir.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Sir,
Am I not clear?
Yes, sir. You can remove the video, off the video and only keep audio on and speak. Then you will be clear, sir.
Car, so problem, the network problem is, thank you, so I'll not come today.
You kindly switch off your video and now in audio you can speak. Yes, now you speak.
Hello? Hello?
Sir,
Yes,
continue,
you can
sir.
speak now. You can speak now.
Can I speak now?
Yes, sir.
I am speaking, but I have not been heard probably. Hello, am I clear?
Yes, you are, sir. Yes, you are.
Sorry, I'm in a car, so I don't want to.
You are in a car.
So
Don't speak anything, please.
Actually. Sorry, I was in a car, so probably some internet problem and all. So
Okay.
I will not speak.
Okay, don't speak.
Today.
Okay. Yes. Shinde sir, do you like to add anything?
Yeah, it is good. Vimalji has explained very nicely.
Yes.
And why we take different births. And the past lives, what they are asking. Our human brain is a million years old. That is what brain research that says. They have cerebral patterns of behavior. And these patterns are already decided. What kind of pattern should be there? That we call in Vedas, etc., as the skandhas. So these patterns, connections of the neurons, everything is there. And what is memory after all? So memory is to activate the brain, to recollect the past lives, etc. So once those neurons are activated and new connections are built, then you can remember the past lives. It is quite possible. And that is what it is explained. But what we have to remember by studying such a topic like reincarnation, we have with us two great instincts. Unless those instincts will go, we will not be free. So the purpose of reincarnation or the law of reincarnation is necessary for the liberation of the soul. And the soul is entangled with the ego, one instinct, and second instinct is sex. Sex and ego are the two basic animal instincts we have been carrying on. And ego, we know the problem of ego divides. Even if it divides, it is a biological need. We require this dividing, analyzing faculty, because then only we can know our independent existence. We can know our own opinions, aspirations. So this ego is essential. Make use of it properly for the dividing, in the sense, analyzing properly, examining. And this second instinct is the sex, is very, very strong. And look at it, sex is also a biological instinct. It helps in keeping the human species alive and active on this earth. Sexes are separated in the divine plan in third root race. But by this separation, do you know what advantage we got? We got new software installed. And that new software installed in the human body is love factor. So, because of love in man and woman, this factor is installed, and sex is, in this sense, a uniting instinct with this software of love. Love embraces all in one, as we say. So reunion with the source, this software is required. So in next coming races, it will be accomplished according to divine plan, bringing us again both the sexes together. That is hermaphrodite again. There is that divine plan. So what we have to remember, the sex instinct is essential. It is essential to love each other, and that can be used, and it is essential for creating a new generation also. So it is a good work, good divine plan we are supporting. But after giving birth to children, there has to be that software which is installed love. So both husband and wife must begin to love each other and not to produce the children. So this is what if we remember, then we can make use of all these softwares. Even the past life we can remember if we connect the new connection, neuro connections in our brain. So all these things are to be studied, and then only we can say how this law of reincarnation is necessary. Because unless it happens, the law of reincarnation won't go. It is required for our liberation. That is what I want to add, nothing more. Thank you.
Sir, here, Ganesh Kumar, sir, would you like to say what you have written to me, sir, or would you like me to read it out?
I think my connection is not that good. Probably you could read it out. I think that may be better.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir, we are able to hear you.
Yeah. So probably you could read it and then it could take the discussion.
Okay, so this is in connection with what Shinde ji has been saying, which is reincarnation is a fact but not the truth, which Krishnamurti said. About this, Ganesh ji has written, assuming that we are making a tour around the world, visiting different places consisting of different terrains, we use different modes of vehicles, aircraft, ships, boats, or cars, or different types like SUV, sedan, etc. But we are the same person. In the same way, the true human being, the monad or Atma, has no birth or death, but only uses different vehicles. So we may interpret that the true human being never dies or takes birth, but only uses different bodies. Perhaps we must now start stating that we humans discard our bodies and take up new bodies instead of saying we die and are reborn. The sun never rises or sets, but for us on the earth, the sun rising every morning in the east and setting in the west setting in the west in the evening is a fact, but not the truth. Similarly, reincarnation is a fact, but not the truth. I think you have put it so beautifully. I think this cannot be said better than this, sir. So well you put it.
Yes, very nice.
Is there anybody else, sir, or madam, anybody else would like to say something? Was my presentation visible to you all?
Yes, yes, it is very
It was.
nice
Thank
and
you.
good.
But the text was rather a lot and so poetic and so beautiful that I didn't feel like adding any of my own words.
But you explained very nicely, even that baobab tree, trunk. So all these are good explanations.
Yeah.
That is why Krishnamurti has said you can stand pressing your back to the trunk of the tree and look towards the sky, meditate on the sky, and imagine that you are not looking, but you are seeing the sky, clouds through the tree. So you and tree are one. So it is wonderful to have this experience of tree that gives you strength, and also it is the tree which knows much about you rather than all other things, because it is the vegetable kingdom is the oldest one, then animal kingdom. So you can speak to the vegetable kingdom and go through it. That is what Krishnamurti also in one of the meditation he has told.
That's beautifully put. So if you give me permission, Pradeep sir, can I share the Tuesday program? Tuesday Triveni lecture, can I share the picture of that?
Yes, no problem.
Okay, sir. So this coming Tuesday, we have Varsha ji in Gujarati, Meenakshi ji in Hindi, and myself in English, going through the life of Nicholas and Helena Roerich, mainly focusing on the paintings. Roerich painted nearly 7,000 paintings, out of which we are going to be talking about 150 of them in this 1.5 hour session. And unlike previous sessions, this will be simultaneous translation. Each of us will be speaking for each slide in the simultaneously. So I welcome you all for this program. And Taral ji, I, and the two translators, Varsha ji and Meenakshi ji, have had to work very hard, because to compact a person's life, and that to someone as large as the Roerichs, it's extremely tough, and we've tried hard to bring this thing for you all. So please do attend this Tuesday's program.
You want to say something?
I just add that as Vimalji has told that they were both, I think, Theosophists, and some of their paintings are really worth seeing. Not only that, Chandrakantji can say that I think one of the painting is there also in Adyar.
Yeah. And we have Vimalji at Adyar library. We have many other